Hi guys, welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can add random effects to your own creative maps, such as extra damage, low gravity, extra speed, that sort of thing. So I'll just give you a quick demonstration. So there's invulnerability, there's your extra damage, there's your speed, and there's your low gravity. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up your different classes. So you're going to need a class designer, and the first one is going to be your default class. So that's the class that you start your map with. So I've just named it default, and all of these options are not changed at all. So they're all the default settings. The next class, that's low gravity. So for that, I've given it a class identifier as 1. And the only thing that I've changed on here is the gravity I've set to very low. Everything else is left alone. Next is the speed. That's got a class identifier as 2. And again, the only thing I've changed is the movement multiplier, which is at maximum. So I've set that to 2. The third class, that is invincible. That has a class identifier as 3. Now you can set yours in any order you want, but obviously these are just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so starting health, I've changed to invincible. Max health I've put as 10,000 so that when it changes, you can see the change. Starting shields are 100%, and max shields are also set to 10,000, and that's what I've done for that one. Okay. Now the extra damage one is slightly different because there are no options to give you extra damage in the class designer. But you still need it because when you switch to that class, that's when you pick up the extra damage. Okay. So that's got a class identifier as well. Now, along with the class designer, you're going to want the class selector. Now, this is the default class selector. Class to switch to none, which will switch it to the default. Time to switch is set to instant. Respawn player on switch is set to no. Restore health and shields on switch is also set to no. You can leave those on or off depending on if you want to hide them somewhere. Pick your own colours for each class. Enable during gameplay only. Activation audio and zone audio are both set to off. Change player to class when receiving from channel 26. And when class switched is left alone. But only on this one, as you'll see in a moment. Alright, so the low gravity, class to switch to 1. Time to switch again is set to instant. Again, respawn player on switch is set to no. Restore health and shields is set to no. Again, choose your own colour. Enable during gameplay only. Okay, so here you see change player to class when receiving from channel 1. And when class is switched, transmit on channel 25. Now what that does is when you switch class to one of the classes that have got an effect, you want to stop the sequencer, which is setting off a random number generator. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to get effects overlapping each other or overriding each other before the effect runs out, and it will cause you all sorts of problems. So yeah, when class switched, transmit on channel 25. Okay. So for the speed class selector, that's set to 2 to correspond with the class. Again, time to switch is set to instant. Respawn player on switch is set to no. Restore health and shields is set to no. And that is change player to class when receiving from channel 2. Again, when the class is switched, transmit on channel 25. I mean, you can set up your own channels for this, but just for demonstration purposes, this is the way I've set it up. Alright, so invulnerability, class to switch to is set to 3. That is change player to class when receiving from channel 3. And again, when class switched, transmit on channel 25. Now the damage one, slightly different, because like I said, there is no option in the class designer to give you extra damage. So for this, ignore that up there. It says invulnerability. Class to switch to is set to 4. Again, time to switch set to instant. All of these are basically the same, except when you get to these. Okay, so change player to class when receiving from channel 4. That's fine. As I say, that's in sequence with the others. Now, when class switched, transmit on channel 27. Now, what that does is we come to the damage amplifier. Okay, so that's currently set to 2 times. The effect duration is set to 10 to match the timed objective device. Okay, so pick up when received from channel 27. So when you switch to the damage class, you will pick up the damage amplifier, and then the damage amplifier itself will transmit on channel 25. Okay, so over here you've got your sequencer and a trigger. So the sequencer, this is what sets off a random number generator. Now I did have it set to looping, but it seems that sometimes when you want the sequencer to stop, it just carries on looping. So I've come up with a slightly different method to work around that. Okay, so the tempo that I've just set to 25 for this video, just so it's a bit quicker. For your own maps, if you want to space out the effects, then you do want to lower that number. The lower the number, the more gap between different effects being set off. Alright, length is set to normal. Zone direction is forward. Activation, send pulse. Pulse direction forward. Activate on game start. Now that will be your initial pulse from the sequencer. Send player information is set to no. And then you've got start sequence when receiving from 26 and stop sequence when receiving from channel 25. So that's what happens when you switch class, or 20 of the classes that have got effects, they will transmit on channel 25 and stop the sequence. Okay, so when the pulse hits this trigger, this will transmit on channel 28. And as you can see, channel 28 is what sets off the random number generator. So for this one, I have it set to a value limit 1 is set as 1. Value limit 2 is set as 8. Winning value I've just put as 1. Result multiplier I've not bothered with. Roll time is set to instant. So pick each number once. I've put that as yes, and it resets on game start. Reset delay instant. Zone forward. Now, when you initially put down a random number generator, you won't see the zone, which is similar to what you have with a sequencer. So if you put that forward with, you know, whichever length you want, that's when you'll see this this area here. Yeah. So the only thing that I've put on this, apart from that, is the channel 28. Activate when receiving from channel 28. Now what that does, it will set off the random number generator, and that will pick any of these zones. Okay. So these zones that just have the trigger in them, that is to set off the sequencer again, because I've not got it set to looping. So once it's selected, that will just trigger on channel 26 and set off the sequencer once more. Okay. Now these ones are the effect ones. So activating team is set to any. Activating class is also set to any. Trigger by player, you can set that to off. Trigger by vehicles, you can set that to off. Might leave that on just because the random number generator zone is similar to a sequencer. Activate on game phase is set to none. Times can trigger is set to infinite. Transmit every 1 trigger. Delay is set to none. Reset delay is set to 10 seconds because the time device is set to 10 seconds, so that's the length of the effect. And basically that's just so that if there are any problems, it can't be selected again while it's already running. And then got here, when triggered, transmit on channel 1, and that will change you to and that will change it to class 1. Okay. Now with these, all I've done is copy and paste them. In fact, let me just show you the timer as well. So the timed objective, start when round starts, is set to no. Time 10 seconds. Obviously if you have it longer, then set everything to match. Only trouble is, if you've got something set to 15 seconds, there's something. The damage amplifier. Yeah, you can't set that to 15 seconds, as it goes from 10 to 20, I think. But yeah, so you want to have everything matching anyway. Right, so this is what the players will see while the effect is active. So you'll see it counting down, tells them how long they've got. Urgency mode, I've disabled it. Okay. And then the only other thing that we've got here is start when receiving from channel 1. And when completed, transmit on channel 26. So what that does is the timer will start when receiving from channel 1, and channel 1 also switches you to class 1, which is the low gravity. Yeah, low gravity. And while the timer's running, no other effect should be getting chosen because the sequencer will be stopped. And then once the timer runs out, you'll be set back to the default class, and the timer will transmit on channel 26 to restart the sequencer. But with all of these, I've literally just copied and pasted them and just incremented the when triggered, transmit on channel 2. See, they're all the same, apart from the channels. Start when receiving from channel 2. When completed, transmit on channel 26. This one will be start when receiving from channel 3. When completed, transmit on 26. Like I said, they're all the same, these ones. The only thing that you need to change on the timer is what effect it's for. So extra damage. Okay, so that's how to set that up. Also, you're going to need your Mutator Zones. You're going to need a Mutator Zone for each of the effects that have, well, which actually have effects, not the default one. So because we've got 4 different classes that have effects, we need 4 different Mutator Zones. Now, at game start, all the Mutator Zones are disabled. Okay, so this Mutator Zone is for the first effect. Now, zone width, depth, and height are all set to 100. Allow weapon fire is set to yes. If you want building on your map, then set that to yes as well. Okay. Right, so enable when receiving from channel 1, which is when our timer starts, and disable when receiving from channel 26, which is when our timer finishes. On player entering zone, transmit on channel 1, and on player leaving zone, transmit on channel 26. Now, it's important that you do that because you're going to activate the zone, And then that is going to enable the effect as well, because it's going to transmit on channel 1. And then when the zone's disabled, the player will effectively be leaving the zone, so it will transmit on channel 26. And that zone will then be disabled. Second one, it's pretty much the same. So allow weapon fire if you want fighting, allow building if you want building. Again, zone width, depth and height is set to 100. Enabled at game start should be set to no. Enable when receiving from channel 2 and disable when receiving from channel 26. Again, same as the previous one. On player entering zone, transmit on channel 2, and on player leaving zone, transmit on 26. Okay. Ooh. This one exactly the same apart from the channels. Enable when receiving from channel 3, disable when receiving from channel 26. Okay. And this is our last one. Which is just for channel 4. Channel 4, enable when receiving from channel 4, disable when receiving from 26. On player entering zone, transmit on 4. And on player leaving zone, transmit on 26. Okay. Make sure these are all disabled at game start. Because I'm being an absolute nugget. Yay! Alright, so start the game. Alright, so as you can see, our sequencer that is currently stopped because there's an effect in play. Once that stops, the sequence is triggered again, which then triggers the random number generator. That sets off our effect. And once the timer runs down, the process restarts. Alright guys, so that's how you can add random effects to your own creative maps. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please consider leaving a like and a comment so I know what you thought of it, how I can improve it, and also consider subscribing so that you don't miss out on any future content. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.